Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name is Gilbert Ron. You know me as Kobe, and today I'm going to take a look at the first official challenge on UFC Strike. Now, there have been a few people that have said that, well, we already had some airdrops during Series 1, but that was not a challenge. That was more of a reactionary move by the UFC Strike platform team in order to make sure that Series 1 was fully distributed, at least the numbers they were intending on, by giving free packs to people who had got in early and had either sets of contenders of Series 0 or a legendary from Series 0. There's a number of different factors that came in that would determine how many of those airdrop packs you got. That was not a challenge. That was just a move by them in order to kind of save face. This is their first real challenge, and it's about time. I'm glad to see it. Honestly, it's got me going again on UFC Strike because for a while there, the interest was starting to wane for me, okay? When it came right down to it, Series 1 does not have a lot of really great fighters in it, okay? I wasn't that intrigued by the contender set, but in this case, if you do have a contender set, a full set, that would be part of the requirements fulfilled in order to meet this challenge. The other, of course, is having the 3 fighter moments from Series 0 that are actually on this card, and that's Julio Arce, Ian Gary, and Khamzat Chimaev. You need to have those 3 particular moments in your collection, and then either a full set of contenders from Series 1, 3 of those challengers from Series 1, or a champion. That's the requirements that are needed in order to complete this challenge. I went ahead and I made sure I had enough to complete the challenge. I already had the Series 0 set, so I've got the 3 fighters that were required. And then I went and bought the remaining Series 1 fighters I required in order to complete the set. And here's where it's kind of a bonus that Series 1 had such a weak selection of contender moments, in that it was really cheap for me to do so. Really cheap to fulfill this challenge when it comes right down to it. Now, I already had a few in my collection. I had about, I think, 9 in my collection at the time, or maybe a little bit more. I think 9 in my collection when I started. And more importantly, is in the contender series, I already had Khabib. So I had the most expensive contender moment that's required. And at the bottom floor prices they're selling at, it was a joke for me to go ahead and complete it. So in order to win this challenge, it only cost me something like $75 to win this challenge. That's it. I almost guarantee you that the reward for this challenge, the fandom moment, which will be a performance of the night moment from UFC 273, is going to be worth more than $75. It really is. And the beauty of it here is that, of course, there's going to be more than one performance of the night. I cannot remember the last UFC that had a single performance of the night. There's been a couple of UFCs where Dana was just ticked because they were extremely boring events. And maybe they had one performance tonight, maybe even no performances tonight in those particular events. But looking at this card, a stacked card. You're going to have a number of performance of the night bonuses given out on Saturday. And we get to then vote on which one we'd like to see fulfill the challenge. And to me, this is pretty simple. You go with whichever fighter is the most popular. So in this case, number 1 on the list is Khamzat Chimaev. Number 1. If he wins with a performance of the night bonus, that's the one we want because there's so much hype on him. Besides, if he wins this fight against Gilbert Burns, the hype is going to go through the roof. Absolutely rocket. Because this is by far his most difficult contest yet. Gilbert Burns is no joke. He is skilled everywhere. We're talking about a elite level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner who went ahead and learned to strike really well in order to not have that as a liability in his game. He is very, very good. This is your typical wrestler versus grappler matchup, and I don't think Khamzat Chimaev has ever faced anyone as skilled, specifically at BJJ, but maybe even hits as hard as Gilbert Burns. Even though Gilbert Burns is small for a welterweight, he's got power in those hands, so it's a great fight. It's an awesome fight. If Khamzat wins this, the hype will be huge. That's the one we want. If he doesn't win, I'm totally cool with Gilbert Burns if Gilbert Burns gets the performance of the night bonus because there are no Gilbert Burns moments yet. So put that one on the list. We get to have the very first Gilbert Burns moment, very similar to the first fandom net spend challenge. I mean, if you call that a challenge, but basically the Adesanya is a bonus because it's the first Adesanya and it came out as a fandom moment. So the first Gilbert Burns is a fandom moment. Sign me up. I'd be totally cool with that. After that, it'd be really cool to see either, doesn't matter which one, Peter Yan or Aljamain Sterling win, because both of them have a lot of hype on them. They're both very exciting fighters to watch, dynamic strikers, very different styles, but both of them have a pretty solid following when it comes to MMA. So to have a special moment, performance of the night moment from them, be a bonus as well. Sure, there are already moments minted, but that's the next ones I'd be kind of after. Then you got to look at the main event. You got Volkanovski and Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. Either of those would be fantastic, only not as good as the ones I've already mentioned. Really, not as good, because featherweights don't have the same clout, really, as some of the other weight classes. People can argue that if you want. There's some great featherweights, sure. But when it comes right down to it, the MMA community in general doesn't care too much about featherweights. Even Conor McGregor knew that being a featherweight was nothing special. He basically starved himself in order to make weight to win that first title, because at featherweight, he's just huge. But the second he did, he took off. He immediately went to lightweight and never looked back, because nobody gives a shit about featherweights, okay? Volkanovski is excellent. He's a phenomenal mixed martial artist, but will he ever have the hype that the top lightweight, welterweight, middleweight will have? Never. Never. It's the break point. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. I think it's because the sport began at lightweight when it comes to UFC. That was the lowest weight class you could be in originally. So there's some history and some real tradition and clout there. But when you drop to featherweight, it's like no one gives a shit. So although they're two very well-known fighters with impressive records and history, a Volkanovski or Chan Sung Jung fandom moment is good, but not great. And of course, then you have a number of other fights that are on the earlier card. You got Mackenzie Dern versus Tisha Torres on the main card and such, but the rest of them, I could give a damn. If one of those top three fights has a performance of the night winner in it, that's the one you want. And it begins with Chimaev versus Burns, then Aljo versus Yan, and finally Volkanovski versus Chan Sung Jung. And me personally, because I've been a fan of mixed martial arts from the very beginning, if I had to have one in the main event, I honestly would rather it be Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, because he's been around forever, and it'd be kind of cool to see him at this late stage win the belt. Even though it's a featherweight belt, that'd be a pretty big moment, a huge moment to have when he finally gets the belt put around his waist. So that'd be a cool one to have if we had to have one from the main event. But I've got my picks on our website, www.prosportspodcasters.com. I've made all my picks for the main card. You can see who I went with to win in each individual fight and who my favorite bets are. We have a deal with Sports Interaction. So if you are from Canada, sports betting is legal here now. You can actually bet on a Canadian sportsbook, and we've got a link on our website. In the article, there's a link to Sports Interaction that'll allow you to sign up, get a new account going, and get a number of up to $200 in free bets to make. You can make them on this particular event. Take my advice. I've been kicking ass when it comes to predicting MMA. Till next time.